Hey guys, it's Paul once again. This time I'm going to review yet another horror film on VHS, and this time it's a little obscurity from the glory days of the slasher film. This was a time where movies like Friday the 13th and Halloween were starting to pump out sequels. And of course, other films started to come out by the major studios, other slasher films like My Bloody Valentine. Independents saw the success of these films and they wanted to make their own, which resulted in a lot of little obscure slasher films from that time period. One of them happens to be Whodunit. This was released in 1982, towards the end of that first slasher cycle. This was released by Vestron. Whodunit is the original title. The VHS itself came out in 86. It was also released in 86 by API under Island of Blood. I found it kind of weird that these two movies were released the same year under two different titles. I don't know why Vestron would do that. I mean, you're supposed to try to cut out the competition. That's why a lot of contracts are exclusive. So it's kind of weird to me that both movies were released the same year. I wonder if even Vestron knew about that, but I'm sure they had to have known about it. But I was also confused on the title, Whodunit or Island of Blood, which is the original title of this movie. I went on IMDb and I looked it up, and the main title of this movie on the IMDb page is Island of Blood, so you assume that that's the original shooting title of this movie. But when you look at the title cards for both movies, it's clear which one is the original title. It's actually Whodunit. And it also kind of makes sense because Vestron was never in the habit of retitling their movies. And if they had, it was very rare that they would ever retitle a movie just to remarket it to the public. So Whodunit is the original title, and it's actually a very lame, boring title. It kind of reminds me of like an old mystery novel or mystery thriller kind of movie, and this is definitely not that type of movie. This is a straightforward slasher film from the 80s. So having it renamed Island of Blood was a good choice because it kind of gives the impression that it's a horror slasher film. This doesn't. I mean, the artwork looks kind of cool. Let's look at the artwork here with the Vestron release. It's just a bloody hand on a bathroom wall. And there is a killing in a shower scene, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's kind of boring, but I like blood on covers. It's really basic, straightforward, to the point. It doesn't give us too much information about the title. The back, it doesn't give us much. It just shows us one of our actresses with a creepy guy behind her with a knife. That's all you really got to show for these type of movies. I mean, it's cool to have some blood and guts on the case, but you don't have to. Has some description. Has the same kind of fake tile wall design on the back. In my opinion, kind of boring slipcase from Vestron here with a kind of, or actually very boring title, Whodunit. Kind of silly and stupid. The Island of Blood release looks a lot better. It's more artsy. It has some artwork on the sleeve here. Has a tagline huge on the top, says, "They came seeking fame and fortune. What they found was a bloodbath." Sounds like a slasher film. Sounds really cool. Which would you pick up at the video store? This one, Whodunit, or would you pick up Island of Blood in this huge, big, glorious box? I think the answer is quite clear. I would pick up this one. And after watching both, I realized this one's actually a better print. Even though this is like the original film with the original title, maybe this one has just been watched a million times. But this one, the print looks a lot better. The colors are actually a lot more crisp with this one. This movie stands out from a lot of the other slasher films, and a lot of people would say that this film is kind of boring. But it's not so bad. But before I get into the film, I just want to say something interesting. When I took the VHS out of this case to watch it, the tape label fell off. I mean, it's a Vestron release, so you know that the label on the cassette is going to come off. So I look in the box and make sure I have it, and I saw something interesting inside the box. I'm reading, I'm like, is that some writing inside the box? And I tear this little video store sticker on the corner here to open up the flap to read it. It's actually gang writing. Someone at the video store, someone who rented this, wrote some gang writing on the flap of the box. I just thought it was kind of funny. It's a little weird thing. East and San Fernando Valley Gang, WAG1, Mr. OG Fingers. Some gang member. I thought that was kind of funny. And it had to have been there for a while because there was a video store sticker kind of sealing the top flap, so had to have been there for a while. I thought that was kind of funny. I love finding weird things like that, and I've had this movie forever. This was one of the first slasher films I got when I started collecting these things. Got this a long time ago. I remember watching it a few times. I put it on DVD-R and I sold it for a little while. So it was kind of cool to find something that I didn't notice last time. Alright, so I'm not going to get too detailed about the plot because it's a very generic kind of slasher film with some unique elements to it. A lot of people, I read reviews on this on like IMDb and stuff, a lot of people bash this movie, but compared to a lot of the other slasher films I've been seeing lately, or alleged slasher films, it's not so bad, and in fact it has some unique qualities to it. So, but because it is like such a generic kind of slasher film from the time period, there's not much to say about the plot. It's pretty systematic. It's just a bunch of teens getting knocked off one by one in gruesome ways, or sometimes gruesome ways. The plot is kind of simple. You have these teens from all different backgrounds, and they're going to this island to shoot their first film, to be actors in this film. It's kind of mysterious to what this film is about, but they go to this island to act for the first time, like I said, in a film. And you've got all the cliche characters. You have the geeky guy, you have the stuck-up rich guy, you have the pessimistic hippie who sings and plays music. Now, all these characters are very archetypal, if I'm saying that right, archetype kind of characters, and they're very kind of cliche. But I'd rather have overly cliche characters than to have flat characters without personalities or without expressions on their faces. So I much rather have that, and I'm happy to have that in this movie. So while they're rehearsing or waiting for the crew to come back to shoot this movie, because it's a few days before the crew comes to the island, they're rehearsing on the island, reading scripts and doing whatever, and while this is all happening, one by one they all start to get knocked off in gruesome ways. But towards the end, I think the film gets kind of lazy because some of the deaths are off screen. Maybe they didn't pay the effects guy enough money to stick around, but the deaths are kind of interesting. And in fact, interesting aspect of this movie is that there seems to be like a rock song during each death scene, and during the death scene it says what the death is in the song. So that's kind of like the catch of the movie, I guess. The unique aspect of the movie is that during each death scene, a song is playing in the background talking about that death scene. So it's supposed to seem like that the killer is killing according to the lyrics of this song. So a few of the death scenes, I talked about the girl getting shot in the face, not very bloody. You don't see a head explode or anything. You hear the gun go off, you see her fall into the water. And then I think the next scene is kind of cool. It's a guy swimming in the pool, and the water is like boiling hot. I didn't even know you can make the water in a pool like boiling hot. I know there's jacuzzis, but boiling hot to a point where your skin melts off your body. That's what we get here. But it looks really cool and gruesome that, you kind of see the skin falling off this guy. Two other deaths. One of them is the depressed hippie guy who doesn't last very long in the movie. When he's sleeping, he's wearing a mask. It's kind of bizarre and weird. It doesn't explain. They don't explain us why he's wearing a mask when he's sleeping. But he gets speared in the face. And he gets a spear right through the face, right through the mask. And maybe the mask was on him to make the special effect easier. But they don't explain why the hell this hippie is sleeping with a mask on. It's kind of weird. A death after that is the girl who takes a shower. She's about to leave the island because everybody's getting paranoid because people are starting to die on this island. Why the police haven't come sooner, I don't know. Doesn't make sense. It's an emergency. I'm sure the police would have came and took care of all these bodies, but that's a weird thing in this movie. It's like people start to die one by one, but the police never come until the very end of the movie. But this girl's about to pack up, get out of there. She's like a dancer, and she's probably the best actress in the movie, even though it's not a lead role. But she's packing up, she takes a shower, and the killer somehow pumps battery acid through the faucet for the shower. Her skin starts to melt off her body. It looks really cool, actually, but I'm thinking to myself, why isn't this girl running out of the shower? Her skin is burning off her body, but she stays in the shower under the water. She doesn't turn it off. She doesn't try to escape the shower. It's just a curtain, so it's not like someone's holding the glass door closed. Besides, the guy's on the other side of the wall pumping this battery acid through. Why is this girl not running out of the shower screaming? Like, what's going on? What's all this black stuff burning me? At this point, everything kind of gets a lot more paranoid. The director of the film keeps everyone in the living room area of this mansion or schoolhouse, whatever it is. Tells them to all stay in one place, it's safer. And this is when it really becomes a whodunit, when people start to point fingers at each other, people are trying to look for weapons. It becomes like kind of that mystery novel kind of aspect, when you're trying to figure out who is it. There's a few red herrings in the movie. There's a guy named Jim, which is one of the actors, one of the teen actors who comes to the island, and he's kind of like a bad boy. He's like a very cliche bad boy in this movie because they put a leather coat on him, like a leather motorcycle coat. It's kind of cliche, but it's better than having a bunch of flat characters, like I said. There's also like a servant on the island, or like a handyman who takes care of the island, and he's always bickering about how he hates the teenage generation and how it wouldn't bother him if they all died or fell off the planet. So that's the obvious red herring. A little heavy-handed. Obviously, it's not him. In fact, I don't even know what happens to him throughout the movie. He kind of just like vanishes in the movie. During this whole time where these girls or these teens are getting knocked off one by one, the director is up in the bedroom with one of the actresses. While he's trying to get action, one of the guys left over, gets cut in half with a chainsaw. And after that, the geeky guy in the movie, he's like, screw this, I'm gonna get off this island. So he takes the nail gun that he was using for protection, and he goes outside and gets some driftwood and starts to make a friggin' boat. He finds an old outboard motor, and I'm thinking to myself, everyone's dying right now. You're really gonna build a whole friggin' boat and fix this motor that's been out for who knows how long, and you're gonna get off this island? But while he's trying to put this boat together, the killer sneaks up behind him and kills him, and it's off screen. That's what suggests to me that maybe by this point in the movie, because all the deaths are off screen, the few deaths that are left over, I think that maybe they just couldn't pay the special effects guy anymore, so he kind of left. By the end of the movie, Jim, our scapegoat for who would be the killer, he's dead. He's the bad boy character. The police find evidence that it was him because they find a recording of him admitting that he killed everybody on the island.
I boiled him, I burned him, I chopped him in two, I nailed him, I speared him, I stabbed him in two. Nobody knows, no one will care, because when I'm done, nobody there.
So the police are pretty sure that this is the guy who recorded a confession tape before he died, so we know who it is. When the police leave and they take the bodies, who's left? It's just the producer and one of the hot actresses from the movie. It's then you realize that the producer was actually shooting a snuff film this whole time. He framed that guy Jim. He told Jim to read some audition stuff, which sounded like an admission to the crimes. So it was actually a pretty genius idea to have this guy record what sounds like a confession tape. But in fact, what Jim thought he was recording was just an audition tape. But the girl finds out that this whole secret, all her friends died because of some crazy snuff film. He goes to kill the girl, she shoots him in the head with a shotgun. And that's pretty much it. That's the end of the movie, and this could quite be one of the first snuff-related slasher films, or at least a movie that talks about making a snuff film. One of the first. Not the first, but one of them. So I thought that was pretty cool. The movie is entertaining. It's your basic American slash film, but the whole idea of having people being killed during this song is kind of cool. The cuts aren't very good with this movie. The editing is not the best. There's some very sloppy editing. There's scenes where you got music in the background, and it will just cut off in the next scene, which usually you're supposed to fade out the music into the next scene, but it just ends abruptly, which kind of stands out. A lot of the actors for this movie did some TV movies or did some television shows. A lot of them are still acting on like soap operas and stuff now, so they're still pretty successful. I don't know how successful, but they're still shooting stuff, so I guess that's worth noting. The director didn't really do much. He just did like maybe 4 or 5 movies, and that was about it. And so in a nutshell, that's Island of Blood, or Whodunit. It's not such a bad movie, actually. It's your basic slasher film from this time period. Your basic one that I guess didn't become as popular as maybe My Bloody Valentine because it didn't have such a big studio backing it up. But it was a creative attempt to do something cool. Between the idea of killing to the lyrics of a song, to some of the unique deaths, and with the whole plot of by the producer to make this snuff film to actually film these death scenes and sell it as a death film, that makes it kind of unusual and unique for a slasher film of this time period. So kudos to the filmmaker or writer for putting that together. It could have been a better movie. The shots aren't that great. The lighting is kind of poor. Some of the lighting just seems really dark in the movie. Kind of hard to see what's going on. I'd suggest anyone to watch it maybe a few times. I read a lot of bad reviews about this movie, but really, in my opinion, it's not so bad. At least compared to a lot of the other stuff I've been watching. Compared to Icebox Murders, this is an amazing film. Icebox Murders was such a boring film, not even really a horror film, but this movie is actually pretty entertaining. I love American slash films, especially some of the more obscure ones. I think they're fun and entertaining. Some of them are very boring, but this one is not so bad. It has some unique characteristics to it, like I said. So this has been Paul with another VHS review. That's it, so have a good night, guys.
Do you have to wear that gown?
It's cold in here.